Bend Around the Wind by Skylia. Chapter 35, Desert Children. Juyu was very curious about the strange giant Loki brought on board, and she had more than one reason for it. First of all, there was Loki, the Grand Master of merciless jerks, showing even a speck of care towards someone that was not Stark. That alone made things interesting, to say the least. Then there was B. Juyu knew that look on her face. She was interested, even if it was hard to guess in what and why just yet. She looked at Tongo with open curiosity. There was not even guarded hesitancy in her gaze like there used to be with Loki. It made little sense to Juyu. While it was obvious to anyone who looked twice that Loki was dangerous, no one in their right mind would think him more dangerous than this Tongo fellow. Although size was not everything, of course, since most would fear a punch from Juyu more than a strike from B, and oh wow, wrong they were to do so. Still, Tongo was huge. She had never seen anyone this big before in her entire life. He also felt warm like a furnace. She could not sense temperature as well as in her true form, but she could still feel the warmth radiating from him when she stood next to him. The markings on his skin were also interesting. Reptilian skin was too thick for such decoration, so it was very rare sight in the Andromeda. He also spoke in a strangely rich and differently pronounced version of the Imperial Common Tongue, the kind Juyu only heard once or twice in her life. Those she knew before were not much for fancy words, and they were not from the smart variety either. Juyu felt oddly self-conscious about her roughly spoken words right now. She hated when others thought she was stupid. Loki sometimes looked at her like that, but well, he looked at almost everyone like that except for Stark, of course. He looked at Stark like he was the one who put the stars in the sky. Her eyes then landed on the wounds scattered all over the big man. Stark and Loki were on the other side of the cargo hold discussing something. Juyu didn't bother with eavesdropping. "Want something to clean your wounds with?" she asked. "We have medical supplies." Tongo turned to look at her. His eyes were searching and calculating in that they reminded her of Loki, but the gaze was also warm, maybe even honest. So that was different. Loki's hard and sharp gaze rarely softened. Unless he was looking at Stark, of course. Stark was always the exception when it came to Loki. It was ridiculous. "That would be kind of you," Tongo answered in his deep, rumbling voice. Juyu shrugged and looked around in search of the nearest medkit box. It was absurd how much of the stuff they had on the ship. She still did not dare ask what was up with all the cargo, but from what she knew of Stark and Loki, they probably did not buy all of this. Maybe she should take the time and ask Stark to tell her what exactly the two of them were running from. It would be fair. They knew almost everything about Juyu and her sister. She grabbed a few things, then walked back and handed them over to Tongo. "You can sit down on some of the boxes here," she said. "I don't think Starks wants you to go deeper into the ship just yet." "Thank you," Tongo said, and he did just that after he found a box that was large enough for his size. B climbed up to a nearby stack of crates and kept staring down at the big man. He did not seem to mind. He opened up a bottle of cleaning salve more quickly than Juyu would have expected from someone with such thick fingers, and poured out some on a piece of gauze to wipe the slashes and other wounds on his arms with. "What did that?" Juyu asked. "Spikes," Tongo replied. "Insectoid creatures," he clarified. Juyu felt her eyes widen. "Those had to be some massive insects," she said. "Big enough," Tongo replied. "I don't think we have been introduced," he said next, and looked up at her again. "Right, I'm Juyu. I'm B's sister," she said. "Pleasure." Tongo nodded, then looked up where Stark and Loki were still discussing things in the workshop area. "Is he your leader?" "Stark, was it?" "Well, he is sort of the commander, but he and Loki are partners, so things depend on both of them." "And you are?" "I'm nobody," Juyu shrugged. "Stark just picked us up." "Oh, so they have a habit of doing that." "Not really. Loki is distrustful and suspicious, or he just generally hates everyone on principle. I'm still trying to figure that one out myself." Tongo actually chuckled a little bit at that remark. "Yes, I could see that," he said. "Nobles are always wary of being stabbed in the back, usually with good reason." "You know he's a prince?" Juyu asked with a surprised frown. "I do know," Tongo replied calmly after a moment of pause. It took a moment for Yu to realize that her mouth ran away with her again. Oh crap. Loki was going to be pissed at her. Again. He barely stopped giving her the death glare for the locked door thing, even though it absolutely helped them. He should have thanked her, but all she got was the evil eye. Ungrateful. At least Stark was nice about it.
You're calm,
Tongo observed.
not afraid of me.
You thought about it for but a second. I don't get scared easy, she told him right away. Then she shook her head. She was not some skittish child, and nobody should assume that. Besides, Loki brought you here, and he's more cautious than anyone. And my sister's not wary of you. I trust her judgment. Tongo turned to look up at where Bee was sitting on the crates, still staring at him intensely. He smiled at her, then went back to cleaning his wounds.
That's good.
Others tend to be more disturbed by her, Yu said quietly.
I'm used to being stared at.
Tongo answered simply.
There is no harm in it.
Stark and Loki walked back to them finally, and while Yu had no idea what exactly they were talking about, at least it looked like they had an understanding about Tongo. Okay, so here's the deal, Goliath. Stark started. Loki and I agreed to give you a ride to wherever you want to go from here, regardless of what you're going to tell me. But it looks like you may need more help than that, and that help I can't promise you in advance, because that really depends on your story. So I guess you should just start talking and tell me what's going on. And I'm not gonna lie, I am expecting a big story here.
Fair enough,
Tongo replied.
I also believe that you should be aware of what you're getting into.
Go on then, Stark prompted. Loki moved to the side and sat down on some boxes as well. Only Yu and Stark remained standing.
My people are wanderers.
Tongo started right away.
We have roamed the universe for many, many years and have more than one planet we can call home. But our oldest home is Sakaar. We have not tried to build up cities or change the land beneath our feet, but it is still our home. We wander through the lands of Sakaar, just like we wander the universe.
Tongo finally put down the gauze he used to clean some of his wounds before he continued.
But we are not the only ones who live on the planet. The Imperials ruled the land for a long time now, ever since Angmo, the father emperor, saved the planet from an alien invasion. The immediate danger was averted, but even after that victory the threat was never completely dealt with. That threat was the spikes.
Spikes? Tony asked.
Sentient spores.
Tongo replied.
Mad insectoid creatures that consumed everything they touched before they were finally contained to one of the moons of Sakaar. It was Angmo who did that, who saved the planet, so he is the great hero of our land. Now his sons rule, Angmo Asan, the Red King.
Tongo continued, and his deep voice became suddenly a little harder as he spoke.
I have been away from Sakaar for a many number of years, and only returned recently. I heard rumors first, whispers that some spikes were still roaming the land, that somehow they were not contained with the rest. There was nothing suspicious about it at first, but then I heard that it was not just a village or two that got attacked, but over a dozen of them. And it became quite clear that only my people were attacked, not the Imperials and not even the natives, just us, the Shadows. Spikes are not smart, they don't pick targets. They attack what's in front of them mindlessly. It made no sense. So I went and started to search for answers. And the Imperial I asked assured me that the attacks were all just unfortunate accidents. My people were told to wait and let the Red King deal with it. He's the son of our great hero, so we waited. But then more attacks happened, and I could not accept to stand idly by. I could not leave our fate in the hands of the Imperials alone. So I kept asking questions. I wanted to know what the king planned to do against the spikes, but I've only been told to go back to my tribe, that I needn't know the complex strategies of the king's armies, that they could not waste the long time it would take them to explain it to me. No matter how many questions I asked, I got no answers in return from anyone. With nothing to do, I decided to go back to join my tribe again. To be there with them, to make sure they were all safe. It was the only thing I could do. Not a day passed after my return, and spikes were pouring out of thin air in the dark of the night. They infected almost everyone, but we fought hard with all we had. I thought all was lost, we all did, but then we heard. Just as the sun was coming up, the Imperials showed up in their golden armors, led by the Red King himself. We thought we were saved, that they came to help us, we rejoiced.
Yu did not need to listen too hard to catch the bitterness in his last words. Drongo looked up at Stark then and locked his dark eyes on him.
He just stood there, his men standing behind him, not making a single step forward. He stood there and watched how my people screamed and died one after another. He watched how the spikes pierced their skin and tore the very flesh from their bones, consumed their bodies, and he did nothing. He just stood there and kept watching.
His voice trailed off and he took a breath. Stark did not interrupt him, but Yu could see the tension in his body, the hardness of his face, and in his eyes.
You probably wonder how I'm alive,
Drongo said after a moment of silence.
There are some members of my race who are born with a gift. The gift of the old power. We are called the Old Strongs. We have the ability to channel the strength of the land itself. There have never been many of us, but nowadays there are even less and less children who are born with a gift. We are stronger in many ways thanks to it. It also makes it harder for the spikes to infect us. So when all ended, there was only me and 2 children left. As soon as all the others fell, the Imperials moved in. The spikes were feasting on the dead, so the soldiers were not bothered by them. The children were taken right away, and it became clear to me then. The questions I've been asking, the picture I've been looking for, it was all in front of me all of a sudden with the utmost clarity. The Red King has been collecting the old strongs. He infected our tribes and our villages with the spikes in order to find those who had the old power, and he has been doing it for a while.
He paused again, but only for a moment. It looked like that was all the time he needed to gather his thoughts again and continue.
I was drained from the fight against the spikes. I overexerted myself so I could not battle them, and they changed me up. The Red King only glanced at me and told his men that I was too old to be taught, so I was of no use to him. He left, and I was dragged across the desert into the town, where we crossed paths. I've been sitting there for a little over a day when Loki and Bee walked up to me.
Why didn't they lock you up somewhere more guarded? Stark asked. He had a dark frown on his face, and Yu was rather sure that her own expression was not much better.
There was no need. There were mainly just Imperials living in that town, and they knew that the king's soldiers left me there, so of course they would not lift a finger. All would assume that I deserved to be there, and none would care to listen to what I had to say. I was left there to rot on the sun. I do not know what else they plan to do with me.
Stark turned and shared a look with Loki. The prince's face was closed off, and Yu could not read anything from his body language either. It was like he was a statue. Her sister was silent up in her spot, but her eyes were not wide with curiosity anymore.
Over the past years, over a dozen tribes and villages were attacked by spikes. Thousands were infected and killed. Men, women, from young to old, everyone. Just so that the king could take the few still young old strongs, raise them to be loyal to him and use their power for his gain. And nobody knows, because those who were attacked did not live to tell what they saw. I am the first to survive. That is my story, Commander. That my people are slaughtered like animals, while the few surviving children are taken to be weapons in the greedy Red King's hand.
Holy fucking shit. Stark breathed out and ran a hand down his face, then covered his mouth, looking at nothing for a moment or two. How are you so calm? How can you possibly be this calm? He asked then, staring at Drongo. Yu could see Stark's point. How can a man sit there and speak so evenly, smile at Bee, and thank Yu for small things? When he watched his whole tribe get slaughtered only a few days ago, he should be angry. Yu was angry. She could feel a familiar pulse of rage in her veins that made her muscles tight with tension. She was sure that she could not utter a soft word, not after listening to this, and here was this giant of a man speaking calmly, even kindly. How?
There is more than one type of anger,
Drongo said.
And there are right and wrong times and places for it. I don't even have the words to say how messed up this whole thing is, Stark said, finally this time running his hand through his hair. He started pacing. He was agitated, disturbed by all this, and he did not try to hide it, not even a little bit. It's so many levels of messed up that I can't even comprehend this. Genocidal psycho. Jesus. How is anyone capable?
What kind of help do you need? Juyu asked and was surprised when her voice came out lighter and quieter than she intended. She should be able to keep her composure. Tongo looked at her, but he obviously addressed them all when he started speaking again. Juyu really envied how calm and collected his deep voice still was.
I overheard the soldiers while we were walking into the town, he said. The old strong children are always taken to Sakaar. It is one of the moons of Sakaar. They are kept and trained there.
You want to rescue them? Stark asked.
I will try, Tongo said. There will be a transport ship leaving to Sakaar in 2 days' time. I heard that from a merchant who argued with someone a little too loudly, not far away from where I was chained up. I hoped to escape and use it to get to them.
How many kids are we talking about here? Stark asked.
Where did you plan to take them anyway? It doesn't sound like your planet has safe places to hide them if the king is slaughtering you all. I do not know how many, but there is a tribe who is going to leave Sakaar and the Fornax galaxy altogether very soon. I hoped to take the children to them. They would surely take them in. It would be the safest. They would be far away from the Red King. Many tribes are planning to leave Sakaar, actually. Too many of us died in the recent years. Even if they do not know that the king is behind the attacks, they don't think that the planet is safe anymore.
Loki? Stark asked and turned to look at the other. They just stared at each other for a few moments silently. Then Loki nodded and Stark nodded back at him before turning back towards Tongo.
It looks like we don't want any kids to be raised to serve this bastard of a king, so I guess that means we're in,
he said. Then he turned to look at Juyu, then at B2.
Girls, this is not mandatory. You can stay out of it, wait on the ship. It's up to you.
I hope you're joking right now, Juyu told him angrily, right away crossing her arms. There's no way I'm gonna sit on my butt. You're going to need us. Stark smiled and nodded.
Good. I expected more questions from you,
Tongo said to him.
Oh, I will be asking you more questions, but Loki tells me that it's very unlikely that you're lying, and little B does not look murderous around you, so I'm more inclined to trust you than not. Your trust is appreciated, and so is your help,
Tongo told him, and bowed his head a little.
There's one rule, Stark said in a darker tone. Don't try to screw us over, because I may not look like it, but you don't want to get on my bad side, and I'm not even going to mention what happens to those who piss Loki off.
Tongo did not seem bothered by the threat, but it didn't look like he took the words lightly either.
You're a good man, Commander. I will respect that you want to protect what is yours, he said. I am already grateful for Loki's aid, but if you help me rescue the children, I will be in your debt, and I will be happy to repay you in any way I can. That is my promise to you.
Then his eyes slid to Loki.
And you need not warn me about Loki. I'm not foolish enough to play with fire. Okay, Stark nodded. We have 2 days. We need a plan. A damn good plan.
I already happen to have one. Loki spoke up for the first time. Not sure you will like it, though.